Alright guys, now we're going to do a breakdown of the Melee Zaku new mobile suit's abilities. And so to start off, let's watch a little bit of the gameplay. So here you have this self-shielding ability that blocks damage, and then goes straight into a bash. That shield breaks the Sazabi, and then they finish it off with the Fire Strike type ability. This is its ultimate, it's swinging around, dealing a bunch of damage, and that's the character. Alright, now we're going to go actually and run through the abilities a lot slower, and actually talk them through. So Zaku 2 melee version is a close range character, has 1200 HP, and it has a dash limit of 2. It's definitely a tankier based mobile suit. It's not, definitely not like the ranged version of the character. So, starting off, the primary fire it has is a large Heat Hawk weapon, and it uses this with some sort of like an energy based distance attack, which is really interesting. Cut. All right, now we're going to continue this with a discussion of the actual abilities, break them down, talk about the damage numbers, what role this character would play, and all the good stuff. So, Zaku 2 melee version is, well, a close range character, obviously. It has 1200 HP and a dash limit of 2, meaning it has decent good mobility overall, considering its tankiness, but it has close range, so it kind of needs that tankiness, and it needs the mobility. So its primary fire weapon is the large Heat Hawk. It slashes with it and sends out like an energy beam that deals damage and, really importantly, cleaves through enemies. I'm really excited about that because I really like weapons that cleave through enemies. I think it's really fun, and it's fun to be able to abuse it into groups. However, if you're noticing here, each hit of this attack is only doing something like 90 damage. He ends up hitting them with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these, and these 800 HP mobile suits are left with about 100 HP left, so a little bit over that. So like I said, they're doing about 90 damage, maybe even a little bit less than that, 85, something like that, right? So however, it can be stronger than this, and we'll get on to that with how its rage bar affects this. As you can see here, the way that it attacks, every time it hits, its rage bar goes up a little bit. And so that's really what this character is about: living, controlling areas, pushing into space while controlling that rage bar and trying to get it until you can use your C ability. So another way to develop this is to use your right click to put your arm up and guard yourself. This doesn't reduce damage entirely. It reduces it by 30%, so to 70% of the total damage. So yeah, and there's no cooldown on it, so you should basically be using it like, frequently. If there's really any chance you're going to be taking damage, you don't need to be aggressing, then you should be using it. The primary fire, when you have this guard up, lets you charge into the enemy, slamming into them, dealing a stun, knockback, and guard break, and you do 300 damage. So that's actually a really powerful ability, especially into things like Sazabi. Into something like a GM, they're just going to die after this. Like, there's nothing they can do about it. So, yeah, assuming they don't have their grenade or something like that. But into a Sazabi can really be devastating for them. It can force them to just completely back up, which is what you want to do in the tank 1v1 matchup, which this character will essentially play as a frontline brawling tank. So the next ability it has is this survive ability. Temporarily blocks all attacks, but the user is rendered motionless, and any damage you take comes in as rage meter, this is honestly one of the higher skill cap moves in this character's arsenal. I did an analysis of gameplay for this character, and the guy who was playing was not using it properly, and he was like trying to use it like it was like Reinhardt's shield. Like, he'd walk out in the open and push it, hoping that it would get him a lot of rage meter, but all that would happen is he'd tank some, get like a third, fourth, whatever of the bar, and then he'd end up taking a bunch of damage as he was coming out of the ability. Because as you can see, like, if he kept firing, you just line up the headshot and you're dealing a lot of damage. This is going to be best used to like hold a corner, like say for example, our player is behind the corner on the left here, and this is controlling a good area, and then the GM pushes in, and then is fighting you, and you're brawling, and you get to about like 14, you get about 400 HP. Then you use that shield ability, the survivability, and your team heals you up, and then the GM is sitting there just wasting their cooldowns, and they push into an aggressive space to get to you and punish you, but you have your ability to survive. So that's how you should be using it. The next ability is really cool also because it lets you poke from range. I really like the ability to poke from range. I love Fire Strike on Reinhardt, and that's really fun. Just because you can poke from range and you can charge up your ultimate. You don't have to like make yourself vulnerable to start charging it. And yeah, I just like doing that a lot. It deals 300 damage, which is pretty solid. You know, it's about 3 of its primary fires, so pretty good, right? This also cleaves through enemies, which is really, really cool. I like it. And I don't really think it has a range fall off. I'm not 100% certain about that. It also goes through shield and stuff like that too. So really cool. The next ability is what all this goes to, is Zeon's rage ability. And we're going to have, this is triggerable once you have your rage meter full. It consumes a meter entirely and confers you 500 armor and gives you an additional power to all your attack. Now, it doesn't do this evenly. So as you can see here, when we get back to the regular attack, the regular primary fire is now doing about double the damage because we hit them with 4 strikes and they're at the same HP they were when we hit them with 8 in this earlier. So it's doing about double damage, which is pretty substantial considering there's nothing in the game that can block that damage, because it cleaves through things and it cleaves through shields. Almost entirely certain about that. Should probably, you know, make sure, but I believe that in this clip up here, you see him cleaving through the Sazabi's shield. Yeah, you do, because it dealt damage to that RX-78. Just checking, guys, just verifying. Don't want to give you guys false information. But yeah, and so it doubles your primary fire damage, which is really, really, really good. So if you have this up consistently, it's really powerful, especially if you are using this shield to buff yourself, and maybe you have like a Dom Trooper supplying it to you too. So you're sitting on like something like 2000 HP and you're just, you know, just wrecking the enemy. The slam ability, the charge ability, only gets a buff of 50 damage. So instead of 300, it does 350. And the fire strike type ability does it does 350 also. So they're not getting as much of a buff. Still a buff, but not as much, right? So when you're in this time period, the best thing you can do is just keep pressing that primary fire. It's on infinite. It has infinite ammo, so you don't need to worry about it running out. So just keep spamming that. As for the ultimate, you start swinging and you just start running. You start running and swinging. And it looks like it's doing about, let's see here. It does almost all of his HP in 3 hits. So I believe it does 250 damage per hit. This 800 HP target, and then it finishes off with the last one on the 4th. Yeah, it does about 250 damage, and you can hit, it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times in the whole swing. So that's really powerful. And your hitbox is bugging out when you're doing this, so it's hard to hit your head. I'm sure it's a pretty powerful ability, to be honest, especially if you get like a G maneuver thrown onto you at the same time. This ability is essentially what you'd want to use, like, it lets you finish off the gameplay that you're pushing into. Like I talked about earlier, when you're playing, you want to be like pushing into corners, you want to be pushing into choke points and stuffing choke points and applying cleave damage onto groups of enemies. And then when they aggress into you, then you shield yourself off. And you use your charge ability to push anything that gets too close to you out of the way. And you use your steadfast survivability to survive, you know, when things are about to kill you, but you do it in cover so that enemies can't hit you with it. If you don't do that, you will suffer and you will just die. Like, don't walk out and try and farm with it. It's not like, you know, it's not like Zarya's bubble, right? Sorry for all the Overwatch references today, guys, but it's very relevant. But yeah, like I said, brawling tank, it's going to be similar to Sazabi when in ways where how it brawls. Then they're both the main tank characters, so they both want to control the main front of the team, and they want to push into space and threaten enemies and force them out so that their team can push into it. They do things a little bit differently. Sazabi has the ability to bully through shields, and this character does too. But Sazabi has its own shield, so it has a lot more like standard stock brawling capability than this one does. This one's is more like not situational, but very intricate. So if you want some more information on Melee Zaku, then make sure to check out this video analysis I did from a full gameplay clip on Melee Zaku. Thanks for watching, guys.